I wasn't even going to talk.
What were you going to do?
I wasn't going to do anything. Just going to sit there and be quiet, see if anybody said anything.
Why? Because somebody said Monday already?
Yeah, it's Monday. Snarky bastards in the chat room.
Monday.
I don't know what they expect you to say.
I don't know. What else am I going to say?
Hey, it's Tuesday.
No, it's not Tuesday.
Well, we are back. Parent Speed, 908-751-0211. We got a guest, but if you guys want to call, we probably won't take your calls because we're too cool to do that anymore.
And not only like us on Facebook and iTunes, but share us. Just share us a little bit.
What voice
Let other friends.
Is that like the creepy uncle voice or something? What the fuck is wrong with you?
It's like the Velvet Jacket voice.
Why? Did your uncle talk to you in such a way?
Jesus.
Mike, come here, sit on my lap.
Whoa. All right, so the point of that Velvet Jacket voice that Tad just used is we would like you guys to
share
our stuff.
Really freaked out.
I know. He's got to take the Hugh Hefner coat off and put the pipe away.
Oh, man. Got to take my sateen coat off?
Yeah. It's important to share stuff. We didn't really know that until we knew it.
Well, the sharing side is important. I've said it a couple times before. It would probably be beneficial because, if you're a car guy, look at your timeline of friends, and not the friends that you got to be friends with because your wife or girlfriend knows them or something. Like your real friends.
Yeah.
They're all probably car guys. And, send them share your favorite episode. If they like it, they'll start listening. If not, the hell with you.
Matt Aruda just made a good point in the chat room.
Yeah.
How's the car coming along? We should be testing already. That's an excellent point.
Excellent point.
And we should, but we're not.
We're not. We will. I think we're going to be okay.
I do too.
I talked to Tim. All these guys know what they got to do.
Yeah.
I have a call with Howard this week.
Yep.
We have
a backup plan anyway.
We have almost every part we need.
Mm-hmm.
I'm waiting on some stuff from you.
Yep. I didn't give you that date because we had that. Yes. Next Tuesday.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you'll see me next Tuesday.
Yeah.
Well, you're going to be like
a little acronym.
Yeah.
You're going to be like Richard Rawlings and hire somebody else to drive for you too?
No, not at all.
No. Why would we do that? Tad?
Seems like the thing to do.
All right. Take the jacket off, Tad.
So, no, it's the Corvette is in progress. Tim has actually quite a bit done, more than I thought. And
yeah, I'm sure he's going on it.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean,
he's just doing it the way he's doing it.
And that's exactly why he's doing it.
That's right.
I could have had a lot of people do it, but I mean, I guess people could always say that, when you see somebody's work, like a nicely put together race car, it's beautiful. But Tim's stuff, he's a craftsman. I mean, his stuff is just gorgeous.
Yeah.
But we're going to be okay. I mean, I guess the plan is going to be probably to do some testing in Florida.
Yeah.
Right at Howard's place. That'll be the easiest.
Yeah.
And one thing, somebody said it to me, and I can't, they said, you don't understand how hard it's going to be to make that car work and the stuff you've really got to do to get it to work.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see. Howard does this.
He's got a Corvette, I think.
He's got a Corvette.
He's had a few.
Yeah.
I think we enlisted the right people.
I think when we talked to Howard about this, we said, look, this thing's got to go 850.
He's
like, easy. So the
only problem we're going to have is that the thing's going to overheat with that stock radiator. So
I know. I'm working on that.
Oh, with the AC on,
I've got a plan for that.
Sitting in the Sonic.
So now everything is going. Are we farther behind than I'd like to be? Of course. But to be honest with you, we did start awful late.
Yeah.
Compared to, because the drag week discussion happened and then all of a sudden we said, we got to do this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was bad timing.
Well, it's typical us too. I mean, you see how fast the shirts got done.
Well, that's a lot of our fans too. So the drag week.
I'm hoping that I don't have other things coming from you in that way.
Yeah. No, I admitted months ago, but the shirt thing is just a shit show.
I can't believe out of all the people we don't know that somebody can't do a logo.
I know. Well, I called out everybody on, where did I do that?
On something.
On the fan page
or something.
I was like, you fucking know-it-alls.
But you know what's funny? Well, let's talk about some of this. Shane, by far, Shane T, highest downloaded episode we ever had.
Is it? Good.
Yeah. By far.
It's like over 1 million downloads, Dad.
Really?
Yeah.
It's not quite there, Dad.
It's like, whoa, please.
But it was amazingly high.
Are they shared downloads?
Was it
to give
$1 billion?
No, there's no B or M in there. But let's put it this way: tens and tens and tens
I know.
of thousands.
I know the number. It was a lot.
So I'm quite
It's a
happy
lot.
with that.
Hey, you got to shout out to Jackson too, because he just moved again. He rolled onto my feet.
I've got we've got a guest in studio, little black guy. His name is Jackson. He's a black lab, and he's
far from little.
yeah, he's far from little. He's currently bothering Tom.
He's like a 55-gallon drum with feet.
Come on, man, that's insensitive. You're gonna get
I
John
meant-
Booley all mad.
I meant I meant that in the most caring way.
Give Jackson a complex, man.
No.
But Shane's episode was fantastic.
Yeah, it was really good.
There was a lot of good information there.
Oh yeah.
And I always look just to see, like, I want to see where we are, see if we're growing, see, I mean, it's out of curiosity. I think everybody would do this.
Yep.
And when I went to look at the iTunes charts under automotive, I think the highest I ever saw us was like 27th,
Right.
28th, something like that. Cause I sent that to both of you guys and I was like, look, that really ain't bad.
Yeah.
And then when I looked, we were like 14th.
Yep.
And then when I was looking at it was like 13th.
And then
Then it went to 11. And I'm like,
in the entire world.
now this is just, it's a daily thing.
Yeah.
So if your downloads are heavy and you release something, it pushes you up. But
Still cool though.
yeah, but I started looking, most of the people ahead of us, they were people that do an episode every day.
Yep.
So what do you think? We're doing every day?
Yeah, let's do it.
Well, I can tell you one thing. When I told my brother this,
Yeah.
he goes, "Oh boy, you're 14 out of 15 podcasts. Are you happy?" I was like, "Oh geez." So I was like, "No."
Your brother might be more miserable than I am.
Oh, he definitely is.
What do you mean 14 out of 15?
He thought there's like 15 automotive podcasts, and we were 14 out of it. So.
Tell him I'm going to go there and punch him in the face. How would that work?
Oh shit.
So
wait.
it was a good,
Yeah.
it was a really good show.
Yep.
It brought a lot of new people to this.
It was well promoted too.
And it did cause me to look at a lot of things. And I mean, I guess it's a no-brainer, but the ones that are the best are the ones that we have the technical guests because, and I got to say this, and I'm sure Shane will love this. Paul Yaw, his 2 episodes were like the most heavily traveled.
Yeah.
And one of those episodes was like episode 94 or
94,
whatever.
yeah.
It was a while
Yep.
back.
Yep.
That was the highest loaded episode. And that's quite old.
Yep. Shane beat him in a day.
Really?
Yeah.
Day and a half.
Day and a half, maybe.
It was,
Sweet.
It's pretty. Yeah, he killed it. So, Rich Mogul said pay up. I just want to address that because I didn't.
You didn't double him. He didn't double him.
But I didn't bet anyway because if I would have bet, I was betting against us,
Okay.
and I was going to bet against us. But he didn't double, so I don't have to. So
If the odds are right, sometimes you got to do it.
yeah, I know, but for $100,
Yeah.
You gonna give him the first
you know what I
T-shirt
mean?
that we have?
Who?
Rich Mogul.
I hope we get. He's one of the know-it-alls that was talking shit. He ought to do the logo.
Well, none of us have any artistic ability, so there's not a lot we can do there.
I have the artistic ability of a fucking shoe.
Yeah, I'm not any good at it. But tonight we've got Ben Strader.
Yeah.
From EFIU. And if people listened to the Shane podcast, there were a couple little nuggets in there where he referenced Ben. So it'll be good to have Ben come back. It's unfortunate for anybody to follow Shane.
Yeah.
That's a tough one.
That's kind of why we did him, though, because if anybody can, he can. He's a very smart guy. Very cool.
Yes.
And I happen to know that he's working on a project that he said we can talk about.
Formula One?
No, he's doing he just got done doing a really high-end Cathedral Port LS engine, naturally aspirated, made a ton of power.
Really?
Ton. I think it was like 780, and I forget how it wasn't a big motor, like big. So now he's trying to top that.
Well, yeah, they have, because I talked to them briefly today on, the Facebook Messenger thing. And I guess there's a whole nother section, like they have an internal combustion engine, like course or something involved with the school. I'll let him fill all that in.
Yeah.
But that sounded pretty interesting.
Yeah. And this motor is really on the high end. Well, I'll start by telling you, he's got a Winberg crank.
Mhm.
And I'm not going to talk about the connecting rods because he could have used ours, but he had them ready. But we're making him pistons and crazy rings, and it's as high. It's like a comp motor. It really is. So, and he said we could talk about some of that stuff.
Okay. Now, is he going to do, didn't you say something about he was going to do another motor like this?
This is the one.
Okay.
It's along the same lines, only this one's going to get a square port head.
Ah.
Yeah. So I don't know how it's going to make more power, but
Well,
he must know something.
he'll be down 190. We know how that goes.
At least. Well, it's NA, so he might only be down 100.
There you go.
And another interesting note, I don't know if anybody watched the Le Mans race, but that was great.
I know you did. You were throwing shit, right?
I watched like the whole damn thing, between periods of sleep or whatever. But I mean, I did watch all of it, only to have like the second to the last lap. I got to give Aston credit. Fantastic effort.
Yep.
They really got their shit together. So the one guy who was leading, the Corvette passed him. The Aston guy's on him. He's pushing him. He's pressuring him. And he dove in real deep and he went under him. And I know exactly what's going to happen. He's going to run wide. The Corvette's going to cross under him and just keep going. And hopefully he'll scrub off speed and then the Corvette will get way out on him.
Yep.
Went exactly like that, except they just touched. And then wouldn't you know it, lap later, guy gets flat. And I'm like, son of a bitch.
That sucks.
Well, the only thing good about that is Porsche didn't win that class. So
Yep.
I got a real Porsche problem. I know.
I know you
make
do.
Paul crazy.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't like them guys.
So, Tad,
Tom.
what do you got? Anything?
Excuse me.
How's your car?
Don't even get me started. I have to get a lot of cam timing stuff.
Cam timing.
Yes. AVCS stuff.
Did you call him
No.
when I told you to?
They lost your AVCS stuff?
Yes.
Who did?
I couldn't tell you who. I just got to get all new AVCS stuff.
Well, some of the stuff you probably should replace anyway. So part of that is not completely accurate.
But I was watching the cool global rallycross stuff. But
We're done with your car?
What? Yeah.
Yeah, we
basically.
switch subjects.
Okay.
What
Try
can I
to
do?
keep up with that.
Yeah, sorry.
It is where it is. It's not moving. Because I have to buy a lot more stuff now.
Well, just buy more stuff.
Easier said than done.
How so?
It's JDM stuff. It's not stuff you can just go buy.
Uh-oh. Magical.
It is. It's all the cam stuff that's not USDM stuff. It's Japanese stuff, and that's how it is.
So what's different about it?
The sensors and all that stuff are different than the American ones.
Okay.
It's a different point on the head. So the American stuff, the US stuff doesn't work.
You ought to call Junior. I'm sure he could figure it out.
Anybody can
See, that's
figure it
what
out.
I
It's
was
just
wondering.
Getting this stuff.
Specifically about your stuff.
Yeah.
Like the newer Subarus,
Yeah.
the US ones, they move both cams.
Yes.
Right.
Yours only moves exhaust,
No, intake.
Intake.
only intake.
That's how most of them are.
Yeah.
Only the STIs move both.
Okay. So,
I think maybe they
No,
might.
the newest. Yeah, it's a good question.
My Forester only moved the intake.
Intake. Yeah.
okay. So the American version of that is completely different, like doesn't even interchange.
It's where the sensor is on the head. Mine's something like 7 degrees or 17 degrees in a different position. So it's
Got to be able to be. Yeah, somebody can fix that.
it's Japanese stuff only.
Bullshit.
Anyway.
Hey, Rich Mogul said he's gonna hook us up with a great designer.
Okay. Well, anybody send us that stuff whenever you can, because that'd be good. You
And
know what I just realized?
And he also said what heads were on that motor. I don't know. We could ask Ben. You mean? I guess he's asking what brand. I mean, I don't know. Maybe they're Chevrolet. We'll see.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what they are. And see, that's where the waters get muddied further when we're gonna get into this whole cathedral and
Aftermarket or factory.
Yeah.
And
Oh no, that science is settled in my world.
no, I know, but when you couldn't compare. It would be like comparing a rectangular port head that came from GM to say an oval port 18-degree head from Dart.
Right.
Or, whatever would be a good bolt-on 18. I mean, it's not a comparison.
No.
And you can't say it's better because it's oval. It's better because it's a better head, period.
Right.
So, I mean, the whole test, if they've done 2 max efforts of any heads available, I don't know what it really tells you.
I don't know. Let's not get back into that.
Yeah, I don't want to.
My SP2 heads don't have cathedral ports, and I don't think anything else in Cup does. So whatever.
Okay. And I don't think that Corvette racing did either. Although it was breathing through like a pair of 1-inch holes or whatever.
Oh, he said the one that made 780 was a 243 casting with a larger valve. Why would they put a larger valve in it?
No, that doesn't work.
No. Doesn't it get too close to the cylinder wall?
Don't even drag me down this whole thing again. I'll tell you one thing that was supposed to happen.
Say shrouding.
The Team 260 guys, they were supposed to call in. I think Adam probably fell asleep or something.
Yeah, they those guys work pretty hard. He probably is.
They do.
I kind of wanted to ask him about all those diesels that they were hanging out with last week.
Diesels?
Yeah, weren't they?
They had that diesel dragster and stuff. It was a power.
There was a diesel Nova, a diesel Mustang, all kind of. It was the Nova went fast. The Mustang was a shit show, but I couldn't see the scoreboard. But the Nova was fast.
Well, those guys, they probably spaced or whatever, but they have to call in because they got their neglection race rescheduled.
Yep.
And that's going to be a big event.
Yep,
That's going to be probably one of the bigger events in their area. So
when is that?
I think it's July 20-something is when they got the track for it. So it's not like tomorrow. We've got time. But they were supposed to call in.
Huh.
So I don't know. I guess I got lost.
Where is it?
Aren't they in Indiana?
Maybe.
I've been there.
Hey, Tad.
Yeah, Tom.
You know, your intuition is terrible. When we're talking about stuff and we're talking about the 260 guys.
Yeah.
And Mike says, where are they? You should be banging the keyboard like with the area code search function and say, oh, yeah, they're in, Mount Pleasant, Indiana.
Don't say anything too bad. He's on the phone now.
Oh.
Where were you, champ?
Where are you guys?
Man, it's been a busy month, but it's just been crazy around here trying to get everything lined up and live a normal life for a second.
Well, I know I saw you guys with some engine trouble, and you live streamed the entire swap of the motor.
Yeah, we were trying to have some fun with that. We broke two of them at the same time, so we're like, well, let's just to show what happened to both of them, and then kind of film them going back together, just to show some people, if they haven't seen what those LS motors look like inside and what can happen to them, and then also just to show, that we do like working on them and we have a good time together as a group and joking around and having fun. So,
hey, what's the date of the new race? We could talk about it more. You guys are probably going to get cut short, but I'm just looking at my schedule because I want to see if maybe we can get there.
Yeah, it's July 28th and 29th.
Yeah, it figures.
Where are you at then?
Wildwood.
Yeah. Do you have something going on that day?
Yeah. Can you change your race?
Yeah. Mother Nature, I'm guessing, the way she's been around our area this year, it'll probably change it for us again.
Oh, God.
No different around here.
Hope not.
It has not stopped raining. It seems like every week a race we're planning on going to is rained out.
Okay.
Yeah. Then the races we don't want to go to are just beautiful.
Yeah, exactly. True.
Figures.
All right. So let's get some info out about this race, what the premise is behind it, and how it's supposed to go down, weather permitting, of course.
Yeah, of course. Here, Nick, take off a little bit on it.
All right. Well, so what the objective was the track had been shut down last year, and they weren't doing any more racing, and it was a brand new facility. The guy just had it redone about a year ago, but he was losing money on it, and he was spending all his time there, and he'd rather shut it down and not lose money, and lose a little money and not have to spend all his time there. But like I said, it's such a nice facility, and everybody loves racing there. So we wanted to do a street-legal street race, but legally, and we couldn't get that done, so we found this and thought it would be the next closest thing, since it had not been raced on in over a year, and then everybody loved racing there, which that's kind of been thrown off since we had to postpone the race, and we've had racing there, but it's still, now it's just the fact of everybody loves racing there, and we want to do a no prep, and everybody's into it now, and we're so into that, we're just going to keep going with it, and I think we can scrape the track, and it's going to be just as fun. We got all kinds of stuff set up. And
yeah, the point was, exactly. Just try to get some of these guys off the street around here and give them a place to race. And most of them, I think, they like racing at the track if you give them a track to race on. And so we were trying to give them that opportunity and give them classes to fit their cars into. So
You guys,
hard tire class on Friday for the street car guys, the younger guys especially, mostly, and that gives them a time to race too.
you guys have a lot of street racing in your area, like illegal street racing. Like, is there a lot of that going on?
The main thing in my area is highway roll racing, which I'm not going to lie, I've done it before, but now the cars are so fast that I won't do it anymore, and I think it's the dumbest thing in the world because people are going 160 miles an hour flying through the highway 4 lanes wide. Well, what if a minivan full of people pulls out in front of you? And I don't want to see that happen. I want to get people off these streets around us and anywhere and give us a good place to race legally, and you can win money and have fun and be safe.
Right. What you'll find is there's not any, most of your, let's say, legit cars, your fast cars, street cars even, those aren't the guys that are racing on the street. It really is more of the younger guys that either they don't want to go to the track because they're afraid that time slip's going to come out and say 13 seconds and not like 9 seconds like they promised all their buddies. Or in that kind of situation. So there's a lot of those kids, and we're just trying to convince them to, bring it to the track and so what if your car's slow? All of our cars were slow when we were 20 years old. It's tough to build a fast car when you're 20. So come out there, get a baseline, and do it safe and have fun with it, and you still be just as good as being on the street and having a good time.
Yeah, not only that, they'll learn a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, with all the people around there, with the types of cars that are there, I mean, they're going to pick up, because all you guys will talk to everybody. It's not like you're not going to be like, beat it, kid. It's good.
It's good all around.
Yeah, it is. And, that's why even at our Muncie races, and we'll have it at Lions too, we do a Power Wheels race for the little kids. And it's the same deal, just to get them started young that, hey, do the racing at the track and racing's fun, and just get that next generation.
That'd be good for Fudd.
Cars and doing it.
A big wheel race?
Yeah.
I don't think they make a big wheel for him.
Oh.
I don't think he's fitting out a big wheel.
I'll design it.
So, all right, well, what other races you got on tap? Because it's not just this one, it's others too.
Correct, yep. So every month, once a month, we do a heads-up streetcar series at our local Muncie Dragway, that track. And our next one there's July 7th. The last one, which was about two weeks ago or so, we had Daddy Dave and John Andrade there, and man, the place was just packed. It was really cool to have it just filled up like it was. And I really think that night it brought some people out that were probably fans of the show, but sometimes those guys aren't necessarily drag racing fans. They just like the TV crap. But I hope that they came out and seen a bunch of really nice fast street cars, and it piqued their interest enough that they want to come out and see them more without, your TV stars there and whatnot. So
gotcha. So for the people that for the people that are close by, these are events that you're going to have a lot of fun at. There's a lot of people there. There's a lot of people that you're going to see that you follow all the same stuff on Facebook. I think it'd be really beneficial if you guys are, but everybody supported this because these guys really got something good going on.
Yeah, they do.
For sure. And we have stuff from 1350 class for basic cars. We got 1250, 1150, 1050, and then we have 2 kind of small tire, faster streetcar class, and then an 8th mile, kind of an outlaw streetcar class. So there's really something for everybody. And like you said too, we like talking to all the people when they come there and they got questions about any of our cars. We like talking to them, and most of the cars, we probably have 100 to 120 cars that show up on those Fridays. It's kind of like a big family. We all kind of know each other. So
we go Facebook Live too before every event, and we go around and talk to everybody, and so everybody gets promoted too. We want everybody's car to be seen. There's a guy there, Dave Ranking, I can't remember how to say his name, but he takes pictures, like professional photos of every single car, and uploads them within the next 2 days of the event, and lets everybody share them around and save them and post them. Doesn't charge us anything for him. He's a really good guy, and we just try to get everybody involved.
Hey, what airport is close to that track?
what was that again?
What's the closest airport, like major airport?
It's probably pretty close between Indy and Fort Wayne.
Oh, so Indy. How far is Indy?
Indy's about an hour and 20.
Oh, that'd be the way to go for us.
Yeah. I mean, well, the airport side, it might be 2 hours from the airport side, but
Yeah.
Fort Wayne's probably an hour and a half from the airport. So
Yeah, Indy's just a better airport for our carriers.
yeah. We'll get you a convoy, pick you up over there, drag you to the show.
Nice.
Yeah, these guys, like I had a little bit of conversation with them on Facebook. I don't know. We got to be careful. These guys might be a little too young for us. Might get us in all sorts of shit.
Nah, we'll be all right. We can hang with them.
There is some diversity there, and it's kind of cool because we have, Nick's, what are you, 23, Nick?
Yeah.
So Nick's 23, I'm 36, and then like Nick's dad and his buddies are all in their late 40s, early 50s. We all we all race together with this, and it's cool to see so many generations of guys that love racing but kind of even have different interests as far as, the older guys are all big block nitrous guys or small block nitrous guys, and all of us younger guys are kind of this LS turbo stuff. So we have a lot of fun with each other because of that.
Gotcha.
The young guys keep even me young. Having Nick and Wes and some of these guys,
you are young, dude. At 36.
Yeah.
It's all relative, I guess.
Hey, give me. You know what? I want the short version of that lime green 67 or 66. I think it was 67 Nova with the diesel in it.
Oh gosh. Yeah.
Do you guys know that guy?
Yeah, Ryan Milligan.
How fast is that thing?
We didn't know him. We did not know him, but we met him, and he is an awesome guy. It's been 487.
Wow, that car was legit.
Yeah, somebody says it's an NMCA car, I think.
Oh yeah.
He freight trained me, and I just let off the gas because when we raced in the finals, he shook the tire, and I half-tracked him, and he came flying by me to where I just let off and pulled parachute just because I would rather get slowed down instead of running out the back door. And we pulled over, and he's like, "Who won?" I'm like, "Dude, you passed me." I'm like, half-track. Like, it's just, that car is insanely fast.
What did it have in it? A Duramax?
I don't know. I know it was a diesel.
It's a Cummins, yeah.
Oh, it's a Cummins?
Cummins.
And I'm pretty sure it's got 2 stages of nitrous on it, plus the turbo. It's legit.
Yeah, it looked legit. Yeah. And then there was that on the other end of the spectrum was that Mustang that I'm not knocking the guy, but that thing was a shit show.
I've seen that car make fast passes, but yeah, that weekend I don't know what the deal is with that car that weekend.
Yeah, I mean,
dude, that thing was bad black smoke. Oh my God.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it covered the track. I watched a lot of their live stuff. It was pretty good.
Well, Tony Rizzi was there with his it's a Duramax powered like old Chevy truck. I don't know what year it was, but it's all blacked out, and I think it's been 470s or 460s.
Crazy.
That is
like
crazy.
That 30s Chevy truck. That thing was bad, bitch. His Duramax.
Yep, and it's a Wagler built truck too. The motor is Wagler stuff.
Well, if anybody out there wants to see some of this stuff, definitely get to one of their events.
Yep.
So, but you guys, look, don't be strangers. Call in. I told you we'd help promote this up until the times of the races. So you're always welcome. You know that.
Thank you very much.
We really appreciate it, guys. You guys are really helping us out a bunch, and we'll pay you back some way or another.
All right, we'll see. Thanks, guys.
Thank you all.
No problem.
See you.
They're really good guys.
Yeah, they are.
And, it's unfortunate because probably people are listening like all over the country. They can't get there. But if you're kind of close, you should go.
I wish we could go.
What do you mean? Well,
I wish we
I can go. You're going to be
I might be-
Wildwood, really,
I'm-
dude? Like, you're just going to be like, well, I have to sit at the beach.
I like that. I might be able to go. We'll talk about it after the show.
I was at the beach for a week. It wasn't that exciting.
Where's that hammer?
Huh?
That's a really inside joke.
All right.
We'll get to that
I know.
someday.
So we got our guest. Hey, Ben, welcome, man. Welcome back.
Hey, what's up, guys? Thanks, man. Good to be here again.
No, same. We sorry about that little delay. We had to talk to the 260 team. They put on a
260.
I'm sorry.
260.
The 260 guys. They're putting on a race in Indiana somewhere. Good guys.
Oh, right on.
Yeah, you got to give them credit. They're trying to get people off the street.
Yeah.
So I think that's, look, we were probably all there at one point.
We were definitely all there.
But it's, I guess, this is the sad thing. Like, as you get older, you see all the shit that happens.
Yeah.
And you start to be like, how the hell did I even make it through all this and get here today?
Yep.
So yeah, these guys are
that's
doing a
funny.
good
I was
job.
actually watching some video today, and there was a bunch of street racer guys, and there's people standing all over the place. And I'm like, man, I must be getting old. That just doesn't look fun anymore.
I like the way they line up and do a burnout, and the crowd is like 2 feet from the car.
Well, we
In
went.
front of them, even.
We've been
Yeah.
there.
Really?
We actually went to one of them.
Yeah, we did.
Because of personal involvement with the guy
That's
that
right.
we knew.
Yeah.
We thought they're
And-
nuts.
Now, I remember going to Newark for the street races and being like at essentially half track.
Mhm.
And I think I did that like once or twice. And I was like, this
not
really
again.
isn't good. And so we get to this thing, and even Tad, who doesn't necessarily hang around any kind of street racing or anything, we made sure we were behind, like, you know,
Yeah, behind the starting line.
and there's all people like at the 60-foot mark. I'm like, you guys are nuts.
And do you remember that night? It was freezing. We
Oh,
knew
yeah.
nobody was going to hook.
And
Yeah.
dead black.
Dead black. Yeah, you couldn't see in front of you. But, well, anyway. So what do you got going on, Ben?
Oh, nothing much, man. I just kind of was cruising through my morning, and then I heard from you guys and thought, oh, geez, that's a tough act to follow, those other clowns that you had on the last few weeks. So,
Yeah.
gotta get my act together, but nothing. I just goofing around, typical Monday stuff, trying to find engine parts and keep our stuff going. We got a new class that started today, so I just try to stay out of the way.
Yeah, well, tell us about EFIU and what they got going on. Let's start there.
Well, sure. Yeah, and I know you guys know some of this because I've been here before, but we're in the simplest form, like when my wife and I go out to dinner and some friends ask what it is that I do. I just tell people it's a vocational school. It's a technical school, but it's somewhat unique in that we specialize only in motorsports and specifically on the engine development and engine tuning, calibration, EFI side of things. We've been doing it about 14 years now. We have a facility located in Lake Havasu City, Arizona, where people come from all over the world and learn every aspect about the engine control side. EFI tuning is obviously our big thing. But beyond that, how to properly place a vehicle on a dyno and handle the vehicle and everything from low power stuff to relatively big power stuff. And, the last 2 years or so, somewhat because of my involvement with my friends that do the pro stock stuff, I got inspired to get back into the engine development side of things and sort of help, bridge the gap. When I started this deal 14 years ago, it seemed like everybody was an engine builder and didn't know anything about EFI. And so that's what we focused on. But now we literally have guys come through the school all the time who have never seen the inside of an engine, but they have a laptop and they've read on the internet enough to have enough of a foundation to go out there and plug in. And they actually are making changes and tuning vehicles without actually knowing what's happening inside the engine. And so we decided to kind of go backwards a little bit and revisit sort of our roots and bridge that gap. I'm no kidding. Had a guy in here a couple of years ago, a week-long course, and like Wednesday or Thursday of the course, he looks at me and the poor guy like has this thick accent from, I think he was from like Lebanon or somewhere. And he says, excuse me, I have a question. I say, yeah, what's up? And he says, what is flywheel? And I remember going, holy crap, I'm in trouble, man. Like this is going to be a long week.
I never thought about that because it's exactly what he said. It's the opposite. When car guys had to pick up a computer, if they weren't,
they were like, oh my God.
yeah, what, oh my God, what is this, Windows? What do you mean it does prompt? They had no clue.
What about when it went from points to HEI? Everybody lost their mind.
Yeah.
It was the same thing.
Yeah,
And
so now you got the
computer was just
computer
bad on
guys looking at a motor,
And
and they don't know what magic is inside, but they know what they have to do to get the magic out. That's hilarious.
it's backwards.
Get the magic
Yeah,
out.
no, and I'm not even exaggerating. I mean, the number of young guys, and nothing against them, God bless them, but the number of young guys that we get in here that say literally, I've never built an engine. I don't know how to do that. I'm just a tuner. And I'm like, I guess I don't know how you couldn't have some experience in both. You know what I mean? Like, you talk about experience, and you listen to like last week, and you had Shane on here, and it's like, holy crap, there isn't anything on the planet that guy hasn't touched. So he's not just a great tuner; he's a great problem solver. He has so much background to apply. Hey, I did this before, and it reminds me of that, so I'll try that over here. And we have these new guys that are coming up, and they don't have that. They just have to basically read or study or listen to what somebody told them, and unfortunately, it gets to be somewhat religious. You know what I mean? Like we always joke around and say, by definition, religion is just something that you believe in, even though you can't prove it. So we have all these gods and these gurus out there that are self-proclaimed experts that are transferring information, not knowledge, but information to people without a solid way to validate it, And so I've changed my personality, I guess, my thinking the last number of years as I've probably just getting older, I guess. But, I use a lot less of words like never and always, because every time I do, I get my ass kicked. And so what I try to think about now when a problem presents itself is like, oh, it can't be that. That could never happen. Is more like, what could we do to set up a test and evaluate it ABA and get real data? Because that's the only thing that's really going to matter at the end. And then what I did was took that philosophy and kind of molded our school around that. It's a real live hands-on experience where guys get to come and do it themselves. And that's what I always tell them. You don't have to believe a freaking thing I say. In fact, it's better if you don't. What I want to do is show you how to test and get the answers for yourself and then let you do it. And there's just nothing like it. We always say you can go read every book in the library about how to fly an airplane and spend as many hours on Microsoft Flight Simulator as you want, watch all the videos, listen to all the lectures. But until you get in the airplane, you're not scared.
Yeah.
You don't have any stake in the game.
Yeah.
So there's no way to replace that hands-on experience. And we understand that not everyone has the ability to do that and get here or travel long distances. So we also do some of the online training and all that. But those are always meant to be a introduction or a primer or like an addition to the hands-on experience. But, all the knowledge in the world doesn't get you very far without experience when you got to go fight some guy at the racetrack like Shane T. You know what I mean? Like, he's going to beat you.
It's really interesting thinking about these people doing the tuning and kind of what Ben said, sort of like you believe in something, like you believe that piston is in there. Like if you don't, I can't picture, and I mean, this still I'm blown away by this because I can't picture thinking about a motor without, like when I drive down the road in my car, I know everything that's going on.
Yep.
We'll do, probably not at the level like Shane does. I mean, Shane's, electrons are going back and forth. And but I mean, I'm thinking about, I know that.
And Ben too, actually.
When I shift gears, I know, exactly what kind of occurs in a trans. And I just, you don't think about it, but you know it. So you got guys that are doing the tuning aspects of these things, and they don't really understand all the stuff in the motor. That is really amazing.
But you almost have to take a step back and say, why do you know that? Like you do. But how did that happen? You weren't naturally born with that information, right? Like over your years of, there's that word again, experience of taking stuff apart and breaking stuff and rebuilding it or whatever, you just sort of inherently have learned that. See, like at our school, we spend a ton of time working on our instructors, working on our curriculum, and working on our game plan so that we can make sure that the student gets value, because we understand that learning is defined as a change in behavior based on experience. So if you don't have that experience, what would ever make you change your behavior and do things differently? So the guy that's only read a book or only watched an online video or only ever listened to a lecture, he doesn't really tend to do that well in real life when they go to the racetrack, if they ever go to the racetrack. You know what I'm saying? Like you have this inherent knowledge and information and sort of, what's going on in there because you've been in there before. You weren't born with that knowledge of the transmission, shifting gears, and all that, right?
No, probably not. I don't think so.
I know
I don't know many guys, that are that way. And so I basically set out to build a place to give people that experience. Because if this place would have existed when I was coming up, man, I'd be a light years farther ahead than I am. You know what I mean? So I'm just trying to do the stuff that I think is cool and then figure out a way for my sales guy to tell everybody about it.
That's great. It's a great plan. It's working well.
So what are you focusing on in the engine development class? Like, what are the aspects that you go over?
So this is a class that is near and dear to me, mainly because it's my passion. I was an engine guy before we started the fuel injection school, 14 years ago. But what I've decided is that there's so many quote unquote engine builders out there. There's always the engine assembly, the blueprinting. There's all this terminology gets thrown around out there. But the reality is our class is far from any of those things. It's about engine development. And what I mean by that is, how do I take a combination and make it better? So how do I evaluate if my engine's even good on a relative comparison to other engines? And then what things could I do to make it better? And it's not always just how much power you make. Of course, in our world it is. But we talk about it as a triangle. So in our competition engine development course, we focus on the things that it takes to get an engine ready to go racing. And so realistically, what you have are three areas of efficiency. Of volumetric efficiency. That's the one that most people are pretty familiar with. We choose camshafts with lots of duration and lift, and we have cylinder heads that flow lots of air, and exhaust headers, and yada yada yada. We get rid of restrictions that make the engine breathe better. We always say the engine's an air pump, the more air it can pump, yada yada yada. Well, what would I do if I was trying to do that? So that's one area of focus. Unfortunately, that's where most people stop. And so getting a lot of air and fuel into the engine is a way that we can create combustion and make a big explosion and have a big fire and have a lot of potential energy to get, but we still have to transfer that to the crankshaft before it's usable to us. And unfortunately, we lose a lot of that energy to things like heat loss. And so thermal efficiency is the secondary area that we look at, and we explore things like we'll take, 3 different blocks or 4 different blocks that are the same. For example, I'll have like an RHS aluminum LS block. Our whole program is based on the LS engine for no other reason than it's a big market. But the concepts you can apply to a Nissan or a Honda or anything else too. But, for example, we'll look at the difference in the water passage between an RHS race block, a Dart LS Next block, a Dart SHP block, a GM LSX block, and then a factory block. So we have all those sitting here open for the guys to look at, and it's really eye-opening when you look at not only the path that water flows through the engine, but the volume of water and what we can do about that, and how we, a lot of times we'll measure the water pressure at various places in the engine to look at the drop in pressure and try to understand what can be done to make that different. A lot of pro mod engine builders that I talk to, they got billet blocks and billet heads. It's not uncommon for those guys to see the valve lash change from the front of the engine to the back of the engine because of the temperature differential. And so we start looking at different ways to put the water in and get the water out of the engine. And those are some of the things that we would look at among the thermal efficiency.
Sure.
And then on the last end, we look at the mechanical efficiency of the engine. How do we reduce the drag and friction in the engine? So, Tom, you and I had a conversation this morning talking about thin rings,
Yep.
And that's just the beginning of it. We spend an enormous amount of time here. We have actually a fully CNC cylinder hone from Rottler that we use that does, like, you can set the program up and it flips the block over and moves from hole to hole, and it's bitchin'. But the reason that I invested in that was we were having a lot of trouble with local, not even local, just general machine shops that would say, here, we're going to give you this piston and have you hone our block. But the problem is they're not used to having people measure stuff. And, Paul Yaw and I joke around all the time, like, if you ever want to make yourself really miserable, just start measuring stuff really closely and you'll hate everything.
Yeah.
And so,
yeah.
We use a profilometer that measures in millionths of an inch to look at the texture and the surface finish and the profile of the cylinder wall before we ever put a ring on it. Well, the problem is you get these guys that have had machine shops for 472 years and done it the same way every time. And what we find is you don't get the same result every time because the hardness of the blocks change or the materials change. And so you can't use the same stone roughness and same pressure on every block and expect to get the same result. Instead, what you have to do is machine it and measure it and then modify what you do to the stone load or stone grid or, coolant flow or whatever. But what we find is we have to change the cylinder finish based on the ring package and the amount of ovality and taper in the piston that we're running. So I run a completely different hone in the cylinder for, say, like a turbo engine or a methanol engine or, say, a nitrous engine, where the quantity and type of fuel is way different than, say, a high compression naturally aspirated engine on race gas, because of the amount of volume of oil that the wall needs to retain to treat those rings properly.
Yep.
So we look at that in terms of, there's a drag function there too. We got the peaks and valleys and core area that we got to look at. But if I can make the ring package smaller, that gets rid of drag. If I make the ring package smaller, I don't need as much oil on the cylinder wall. If I've got a dry sump versus a wet sump, anyway, I'm rambling on forever, but my point is that, we look at stuff like that. We look at things like going to smaller bearings to reduce surface speed at higher RPMs, the variations between large bore short stroke versus, normal size bores, and doing a long stroke engine, and how the distance that the rings have to travel up and down the bore gets multiplied at higher RPM. So anyway, the class is about thinking for yourself. and not just doing it the same old way that everybody else does because it's easy to get those parts and I can quickly assemble it and I can make a number. The class is for the guys that really want to think outside the box and say, how do I make the engine better? That's what engine development is about. You start out with package A, and you modify it to A 2.0 and then A 2.1 and so on and so forth until you get to where you're pretty happy with it, and then you start on package B. And that's what that class is really all about. So I spend a lot of my time doing that.
So I'm just curious. So you've back-to-backed probably an awful lot of stuff to be able to say some of the stuff you just said.
Yeah, more than some guys, not as much as others. You know, I never try to pretend like I'm the expert at everything, but generally I like to be able to prove what we're talking about. Otherwise, I don't like to say it because somebody else that's smarter than me comes along and makes me look stupid.
Yep. But that's pretty cool to be able to just test like that.
One of the benefits of what I get to do here and what we're doing as a school and as a company is that effectively, probably the best compliment I've gotten a long time was Lake Speed Junior from Driven Racing Oil, formerly, the Joe Gibbs program came by a few months back, and actually it's been longer than that now, but he walks in the building. We've known each other throughout the years from the trade shows and this, that, and the other, but he finally came to Lake Havasu and just said, I want to see your facility. And you know how that is. You're always nervous when you're showing off your stuff. And he walks in and he sets his bag down and he just stood there for a second and kind of looked around in the engine room and he just goes, wow. And I was like, uh-oh, what does that mean? He's like, this is like a legit engine shop. And I was like, oh, well, yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah. So it was like a huge compliment from a guy like him.
Yeah, he's been in a couple engine shops.
Yeah, seen just a few.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And my point is that we get to do that, except that what's unique about our situation is we don't have any customers. I don't have the pressure of a guy pounding on my door to make this weekend's race, or, I ran it and it wasn't as good as I thought, and blah, blah, blah. So we kind of get to take the money part of the equation out of it that takes that pressure off. So it allows me a couple of advantages. I get to do the R&D all the time that I think is interesting, but it makes it so that our facility is somewhat underutilized in that we're not building an engine, get it on the dyno, get it to the customer. So it leaves an opportunity for me to do R&D in partnership with major manufacturers. Like we're little guys, we do some piston development stuff with Rob over at GibTech and do shape testing and ring profiling and packages. And, him and I have an engine together that he's starting to make different pistons for, where we change all of the stuff that matters and test it. And our logic, the way we do that, is we'll use the in-cylinder pressure transducers. And because of that, you can measure cylinder pressure and, bore stroke and BMEP and all that stuff. So you can actually get a fairly decent calculation of horsepower that you're generating or torque that you're generating in the cylinder. So what we'll do is we'll do that and compare it to what's at the flywheel on the dyno. And the difference is essentially your friction. So what we'll do then is make some changes and think about what we could do differently and retest. And so we get to do all kinds of cool stuff like that. I do a lot of, I'm learning every day from guys like Billy Gladbold over at Comp Cams, where they're helping us with valve train development, and we're doing stuff and going to their Spintron in Memphis and running stuff. And it's cool to be able to do this and not have the pressure of a customer saying, hurry up, I need it right now. Mm-hmm. It just gives us a lot more flexibility to try stuff that you couldn't normally do.
Boy, can I relate to that.
Yeah.
He's saying that, and I'm like having flashbacks.
Yeah. And he didn't even mention the chasing them for money part.
No, try to get paid.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So
which is the worst part.
The cool thing is that our students essentially fund that program with their tuition. I use the dollars that we get from selling our classes to reinvest in the company and buy these parts and do the testing. And, that's a unique thing. I don't know of any of my buddies in the racing industry that get that luxury of getting to sit back and go, what do we want to do next? What would be interesting to learn? It's always the pressure of I can't even afford to try that thing that I got this idea of about, because if it's not right, I don't win this weekend. And if I don't win, I don't get sponsor money. And, it's all this external pressure that we sort of get to avoid passively, I guess, is the best way to say it.
Yeah.
So it's awesome. Pretty cool.
That is awesome. So you got this this new LS based engine going together. The last one you did, how many cubic inches was the last one?
So the one that everybody's probably seen is the Cathedral Port engine. That was based on a GM LSX block, and it was 381 inches.
And what cylinder head was on that?
So believe it or not, that's a GM 243, LS6 casting that Lingenfelter had originally ported with their Stage 2 package. The only thing that I did different to it was I took the stainless valves out and did titanium on the intake and the exhaust, and really just so I could run it longer and not worry about things. But they really don't move much air. Those things only move about 312 or 315 CFM.
Yeah, I remember those numbers. Yeah,
they're not huge. You know what I mean? That's a really interesting engine, and I did that on purpose because the goal wasn't to make a big number. In other words, if I wanted to do that, I'd put a big giant LS7 head on it and turn up the RPM, and you can make a big number. That's not hard. Anybody can buy Chinese turbos for $500 and make a big number.
You can make more power with a square port head.
Well,
sorry, man. Don't even. Yeah, we're not going to go there, but I had to. Sorry. Yeah, you knew I was gonna.
Yeah, I actually think you can. I know there's probably people that are going to throw rocks and say no way, but the reality is it's real tough to make a big power number without airflow. And that particular cylinder head that we have is a huge restriction to airflow.
Yeah.
We can talk about velocity all you want and cross-sectional area, and yada, yada, yada.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, man, if you can't shove your fist in there, it's probably not big enough.
Yep.
So, we put all these extra constraints on it, right? Guys say, XYZ cylinder head port is too big. Well, too big for what? A street engine turning 6,000? Because I'm not doing that. Our stuff is, 8,500 and 9,500, and our spinal tap engine going to be over 11,000. So it's too big for that application, but it's not too big for anything. You look at a big mountain motor pro stock or even a pro stock cylinder head, and you feel like you could put your face inside there.
Yeah,
so
you can sit in
that's
them.
That's not always the answer. Yeah, exactly. You listen to the Cup guys talk, and they'll tell you every single thing that they do on a naturally aspirated engine to try and improve swirl and tumble hurts the engine. Because to do that hurts the volumetric efficiency. And in a straight, naturally aspirated, trying to make a big number engine, you really need volume of air more than anything else.
Yep.
The turbo and the nitrous engines benefit a lot more from that swirl and tumble because they need to stabilize the combustion, need a better, more homogeneous mixture around the cylinder because it's so much temperature, so much cylinder pressure, yada, yada, yada. But us schmucks doing NA stuff don't make any power to worry about that. So, ultimately, I believe that the Cathedral port is the limit to that particular engine that we did.
Yeah. Still,
it's pretty darn good.
Very impressive engine.
Not because of the cylinder head.
No, it's very impressive.
That are out there that don't know, it was a naturally aspirated. It was 381 inches with that little, and by the way, that's a 2-inch intake valve.
Yep.
A 155 exhaust. It's a shaft mount rocker. It's not even a ton of camshaft in the thing. It's like 673 lift and 260 on the intake, 270 on exhaust. Pretty mild stuff.
And wasn't that also a hydraulic roller? Did I read that right?
No, that was a solid.
Okay.
That was a solid roller. Yeah.
Okay.
So, I don't know that you couldn't do it with a hydraulic, but it would probably take some different stuff messing around with it, to get it right. But, But that said, we didn't even turn the thing really hard. I mean, it makes peak power at 8,000. We ring it out to 8,400 or something. But that thing made 778 horsepower, naturally aspirated. When I first started on that project, it was in the 730s. And this is my whole point. That was a great engine at 732 or 736 or whatever it was.
Yep.
It was awesome. But the goal was, what can we do to improve it? And we certainly weren't going to do that with airflow or putting more camshaft in it or, whatever, because the cylinder head was the limit. So all of those changes came from mechanical and thermal efficiency, changing compression ratio, going down in ring size, changing the ovality and taper of the piston. We do things like shrink. We couldn't at that point shrink the diameter of the rod bearings, but I made a fixture to put all the rod bearings in the lathe and narrow them to get rid of surface area. You know what I mean? So every little thing that we do helps a little. There's never a light switch where you just flick it and they go, there's 30 more horsepower.
No.
It's 1 here, it's 3 there, it's 5 there, and pretty soon a year down the road, you're 30 better.
All super stock tricks.
Yep.
Offset bore, shifting the heads, everything.
Yep.
Yeah, nothing that, believe me, I promise you, I'm like the dumbest guy that's been on your show in the last month or so. Nothing we do is magic. Nothing we do is proprietary. It's just paying attention to the details. And you don't, a lot of guys say, well, you got to know where to look. Well, that's not fair. If I'm a new guy, I don't know where to look.
Yeah.
So what we do is we try everything and record it and document it and test ABA. And then when we know that something is good, then we turn around and add that to our curriculum and tell people about it. But until then, it's just my opinion versus anybody else's.
That's that's really cool. And by the way, I just have to interject that you are by far not the dumbest person that's been on our show in the last month.
No.
I mean,
I forgot about Paul, but other than that, he's pretty.
Yeah, I mean,
he was talking trash on the internet today, so I had to put that in there for him.
yeah, I know, I saw that. He'll appreciate that.
That's car guys.
And I
crowd.
wasn't even talking about him. I mean, some of the guys at this desk right now, self included. we've all had our moments.
Oh yeah, I got a load of them.
Yeah.
Anyway. I promise you, I've broken a lot of stuff and felt bad about it for a few days. So I'm in that category.
Yeah. So how far along are you with the new one? Well, I know how far you are along with pistons and stuff, but
yeah. So I want to be clear on which one we're talking about. I got two new ones. The new one is the one that you and I have been talking about.
Yep.
And I have all day been working on a list on my desk of the plan, right? So every engine that we do starts out with a plan. Like, I think if you don't have a goal, how do you know when you're finished? So I started with a block, and then, somebody literally asked me over the weekend, like, how do you do it? How do you start with a clean sheet design? And I said, well, typically you start with a power number and an RPM, because effectively that's going to define, if we're talking about naturally aspirated anyway, effectively that's going to define how many cubic inches you need. It's just a math problem. If you're going to displace X amount of air and you're going to turn it into this much power, if you give me an RPM, that's how many times I can pump air. And you tell me how much power you want to make, that pretty much tells me how much displacement we're going to need to do that. And then I start working backwards from there and come up with a bore and a stroke and all that stuff. So, what I've learned over the years is that I used to be willy-nilly and say, I want to build something with a 4-1-65 bore. All right, cool. So then we do that and we get a piston made and we do all this stuff. And then you'll call up a ring guy, Total Seal, whatever, and they go, oh man, that's an oddball size. I guess we're going to have to make something custom. And they can do that. But what I've started doing now is I'll call them up and say, hey, what do you got in a profile of a ring like this, this, and this? I'm looking for a stainless top and a tapered or a Napier second, and I want it to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 23 or 28 or whatever. And they'll go, oh, you know what? We got 800 rings on the shelf from some deal that we did with XYZ Racing, some big cup team or pro stock team or who knows, whatever. Somebody along the line spent the money for us to develop this. We made them all, and then they went on to the next coolest, hottest thing. Well, so then that tells me, good, I want to be in that bore range and use what you already have done. Mm-hmm. From there, that basically sets my stroke, and then we go from there and so on and so forth. I no longer try to build it the way that my brain says I should do it. I do what's practical and what makes sense. But that said, I have an entire list for the new CED competition engine development engine product that I want it to end up with. And I have, stuff that, okay, check this. I got that. I got the dry sump. I got the bearings. I got this. And so I would say, looking at my list, I have of about 27 pieces. I probably have 8 or 9 more to go to get handled. Not like I need to call and order this or buy it. A lot of times you got to order it and then call them 3 weeks later, remind them that you ordered it. Our industry's challenging that way. So I would say I would call it, I'm probably 70% done. We are very close to having the cylinder head done, which that will dictate a chamber shape, and then that'll give me valve drops, and then we can do pockets in the piston, that kind of stuff. We're pretty far along, but I'm excited about that one. That is going to be a 358-inch LSX, basically. It's going to use an RHS LS7 cylinder head. We got the camshaft stuff all worked out. It's going to use a standard 842 lifter, which was important to me because it's the kind of stuff that an everyday guy could get.
Yep.
Now, our Spinal Tap engine uses really exotic, giant, wheel-guided lifters. I mean, they're badass, but, you're going to spend $4,500
just to drop them in. Yeah.
Yeah. So as cool as that is, and I love it, I didn't think that was real practical for the everyday guy. So I said, what could we do on an 842 lifter? Now, here's the thing. When I was in Memphis at Comp, we turned some 842 lifters like 9,700 RPM, a little over 10,000 RPM. And we kind of know what you can and can't get away with an 842 lifter now. So we're going to do a 358-inch deal that's big bore and short stroke. It's 4-185 bore. It's only 3.25 stroke. Now, the factory LS is 362. Most guys go up, 375, 4-inch, 4.1. Well, again, since everything we're doing is focused on getting rid of drag and so forth, just think about if I could save a half inch of stroke, that's a distance of a half inch less my rings have to scrape along the cylinder wall twice per revolution. So that's 1 inch per revolution. Well, at 9,000 revolutions, that's 9,000 inches less per minute that we got to travel, so on and so forth. So at 358 inches and 16 or 16 and a half to 1, we're going to turn this thing about 94, 9,300. It probably will peak at about right over 9, and I'm hoping it'll make in the neighborhood of between 800 and 820 horsepower naturally aspirated.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good target.
Be cool.
See,
Yeah,
that kind of thinking, I hope our people, our listeners are getting that kind of thinking. Like an inch of movement times 2. Well, no.
Yeah.
But at 9,000 RPM,
but you get it.
It's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, this is all
you start
stuff.
thinking about it and you go, wow.
Yeah.
That's a really big deal.
It's like
Yeah.
miles.
Now, what if do you have an opinion at this point? Because this will be the next argument that everybody has about stroke versus torque location and everything else. I mean,
Sure.
I have my own personal observations from some of the stuff I've done. And I mean, I know that there are general tendencies, but can you clear up for maybe some people what you see, stroke versus bore, or is that still one that's a little tough to weigh in on?
No, I think for me, it's pretty well settled in my mind, and I'm sure that won't settle any arguments, but the reality is it's nothing more than a math problem. So, power is always a function of torque and time. If I can make 500 foot-pounds at 5,200 RPM, we make 500 horsepower. If I make 500 foot-pounds at 6,250 RPM, then we make almost 600 horsepower. Because I'm doing the same amount of work on every cycle, I'm just doing more cycles. So I could even do slightly less work, but do it way more often at 9,000 RPM and make a really big power number. So that's one of the secrets that people kind of miss of how we make these big power numbers is RPM is your friend in every single way except financially. It's very expensive to do high RPM stuff.
Yeah.
But when you do it, it's effectively like adding displacement to the engine. I got something that's only 358 inches, so of course it won't make a big power number at 6,500 RPM where most LS engines live. But doing it at 9,000 RPM, it's just like a 30% bigger engine because I'm displacing that same smaller volume of air more often. Now, by doing that, I get the engine to pretend it's bigger than it is, and we can use a larger or a lower numerically, lower gear ratio, higher numerically gear ratio in the car. I'm talking about drag racing stuff, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So we get the torque back. I mean, that's what a gear ratio does. It multiplies torque. So even though my engine makes less at the flywheel, I can use the ratio to multiply it back to where it would have been at less RPM and higher torque number.
And I hope everybody paid attention to that.
Yeah, like show 50 or whatever.
That everybody just, they just don't get it. I mean, under your rear end cover or quick change cover or whatever, that is the horsepower item that you can change at the track easily.
Yeah.
That really, and as long as, like he said, as long as you can afford it, in both ability and financial capacity to drive something that hard, it's better.
And we talked about that 50 shows ago.
Yes.
Yeah, it will be every single time. I mean, you get more power pulse inputs to the driving mechanism per unit of time. I can take advantage of the torque multiplication through the gear ratio that I didn't get from the flywheel, right? And the engine is going to displace a larger volume of air per unit of time at, say, 9,000 versus 6,000 or whatever numbers you want to use in your math problem. It's still just a math problem. The downside about doing RPM is it's tough. It's hard on parts. It's difficult to maintain it and not break stuff. It's expensive. But other than that, like if big stroke and low or small cylinder bores was the hot ticket, every pro stock team out there would be doing it. They're not limited by budget. So, you got to look at the math problem and you go, big bore short stroke wins drag racing anyway, wins just about every single time.
Yeah. In all the classes that don't have any kind of power header.
Yeah. Well, look at, a perfect example of that is Formula One.
Yeah.
I mean, engines that turn in excess of 18 to 20,000 RPM. Why? Exactly what he just explained.
Yeah.
That's why.
Yeah. That's why our little cathedral port engine does so well. There's two reasons. One, we use what I consider to be extreme compression ratios. That thing has been upwards of 17.5 to 1 compression. And so what that does is it helps the volumetric efficiency by having less leftover exhaust gas at the end of the exhaust stroke. There's literally the piston's so high in the bore, we don't have anything left. So you're going to force everything out. The other thing is, though, that thermally, generally the higher your compression ratio is, the closer the air and fuel molecules are pushed together before you light the spark plug. So the rate that the flame will expand, the flame propagation speed, the burn rate, whatever you want to call it, across the cylinder is higher. That's a huge advantage because it means that we delay the ignition timing event, which means less of that expansion is happening while the piston's still trying to come up. So we have a mechanical advantage, and less of that heat is being lost to the cylinders and the water jacket while we're waiting for the piston to get to TDC and then back down the other side and reach peak pressure. So there's both a mechanical and a thermal advantage to that really high compression ratio. And then the other thing is we just do it a lot. We do a lot of RPM because that cylinder head, that 243 cathedral port head, is restricting our airflow. So if I can't move as much air per cycle, I'll just do more cycles.
Mm-hmm. It's the only other option.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, from the camshaft perspective,
garden tractor.
From the camshaft perspective, I'm a very big fan of Billy's. I've said it numerous times on the show before. He helped us with a flat tapper program, and that flat tapper program was really goofy because it wasn't like cup flat tap it where you could have a tool steel core and like the trickest of trick. There were rules
and the mushroom and all that stuff.
We had to use an 842 tappet and a regular cam core.
Yep.
So it's a tough one. And, you get in a lot of rocker and trying to make the thing as good as you can. And I mean, he's a guy we've actually talked about. I'd like to see if we can get Billy to come on. I think that he'd
be awesome.
He'd be more in the cam department in knowledge than you could get from a year of talking to anybody else.
Yeah.
He's fantastic.
Yeah. Like he's probably forgotten more about camshaft design than I'll ever know about fuel injection.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes any sense. I mean, that guy is amazing.
Yeah.
But that's a whole nother section to engine development, camshaft and valve train theory as to why. Not only stability, but speed, everything about it. That's a huge part of it.
Well, and I think that's probably an area where all of us are constantly learning more, and that's why I try to hang out with Bill so much. Is he and I probably talk, 2 or 3 times a week, and just as an example, if you go and get CompCam's master load profile catalog, there's something like 30,000 different camshaft load profiles in the catalog. Now that's not a cam catalog. You don't pick out camshafts. That's the lobe design. And when I first heard that a couple of years back, it was like, how many different ways can you make an egg that's 260 degrees?
Whew.
Or 250 or whatever. It didn't click. But then Billy does this amazing presentation and he shows you, when you start looking at it and you really start, here we go back to this measuring things closely, you start to get really miserable because we look at not just how much duration, how much the valve is open, but how fast is the valve moving. So it was on the seat and, 10 degrees later, it's this far off the seat, and 10 degrees after that, it's this far off the seat. So we look at the velocity of the valve motion, right? So then smart guys will say, well, geez, if you have the velocity, then we could look at the change in velocity, which would tell us the acceleration rate of the valve. Mm-hmm. And all the Newtonian physics guys will start thinking force equals mass times acceleration. And, then there's kinetic and potential energy in the system. And so you look at things like jerk profiles, which are the rate of change in the acceleration rate of the camshaft. And so now you start to realize that, if all I ever talked about was lift and duration, okay, the valve happens to not be on the seat for 260 degrees. It's not meaningless, but gosh darn, it's pretty close to that because unless you know the motion profile of the valve, and that's really what matters, is the valve is determining when the doors open and air can get in or out of the cylinder, you really don't know that much about the system. And then you start adding all the complexities of, this is the motion that somebody like Billy has programmed into the cam lobe, but whether or not we transfer that motion accurately to the valve is a completely different story. We talk about push rod flex and stiffness and rocker arm, just the geometry and the path that the roller travels through its arc and the ratios that you use and total system stiffness. Billy's taught me how to look at, we put our entire thing together with checking springs and we mock it all up and do it. Then we take it all apart and put it back together with your real springs, and you're shocked at half the time how much less lift you actually get at the valve because everything's deflected and bent in the system.
Yep.
And so that might be the push rod, the rocker arm, or any number of other things, but it really starts to boggle your mind when you think about how complex valve motion is that we're trying to do with eggs on a stick and some push rods and things like that.
Mm-hmm. And when people look at a Spintron video and they look and they get an idea what the spring is going through, you got to realize the rate that's happening. I mean, that's it. It slows it down to give you a picture of what's going on. But think about what's really going on under a valve cover at 9,000 RPM. It's amazing.
It's craziness.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you think about 11,000 RPM that we're trying to do on our Spinal Tap deal with Billy, and it's like, dude, you're talking about. Let me think about this for a second. Let's see, roughly 10.9 milliseconds per cycle. So if you take, 720 degrees, it only takes you 11 thousandths of a second. You're opening and closing the valves like 83 times per second at 11,000 RPM, and you're asking the valve train to control that motion.
Yeah.
I can't even think
it's mind-boggling.
You wouldn't even think it could work.
No. And somehow it does.
It doesn't seem possible.
And then you slow it down and you figure out what spring makes it work, and they actually do.
I know.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I wish more people could see Spintron stuff in action because it really is. It's mind-boggling.
Mm-hmm.
If you're out there listening and you're not familiar with what that is, just Google Spintron and look at some of the videos, and it's the beginning of like making you crazy, like insanity. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it really is, because once you start,
crazy to me is you'll do it and you look at the data and you're like, okay, that sucks. Let's change one thing, like changing the installed height of your valves. Right?
Yeah.
So getting it closer to coil binder,
Yep.
farther away, and all of a sudden it behaves totally different.
Yep. Yeah, people don't realize the changes are so random. Like you could put weight on a retainer and make something better,
Mm-hmm.
or people fought push rods forever. And Ben, you must know there are push rods that weigh like a pound now.
Yeah.
It's insane.
And you can make a push rod more rigid and induce instability.
Yeah.
There's so many things that can happen with that. I mean, I remember with some of the super stock stuff, and it was, through some work with Jessel, we ended up finding that if we put the valve springs in, like actually at coil bind, like 5 thousandths away, that we got a lot better valve action. But I don't know that that'll work with everything.
No, it doesn't work with everything, but
sure
but Pro Stock, they were doing that years ago, having zero because of the flexion and everything. They know it's not zero. They probably end up at 40 or something like that. But we find.
You'll see guys that build really high-end stuff where when you're just mocking the engine up and rolling it around, your piston to valve clearance would be like negative 25.
Yeah.
And then you put like the real valve springs in there and there's so much deflection, you've got like plus 18 or plus 22, or you know what I mean? Like it's crazy how much bending there is. And then I start thinking about, well, that's only when we're cranking around by hand. What about the forces that are applied when you're trying to accelerate that thing at God knows what?
Yeah.
Well, Tom, didn't you talk about, what was it, a top alcohol dragster? They're extremely hard on valve springs because the rate they actually accelerate the engine?
Well, yeah, that was back in the day. I don't know if they still are, but they were the fastest accelerating engine that we know of, from idle at, 3,000 RPM to 11,000 in no time. It was almost backwards. That's how fast they accelerated. And and you're trying to control everything with a big, heavy Hemi valve also, by the way. I mean, they're giant,
right?
A lot of tulip.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, it was It was the worst thing to make springs for. The worst.
Yep. And obviously that spring thing has changed so dramatically in the last probably 5 years or so. I mean, you talk to the really smart guys like, talk to like Dave Trott over at PSI about what they're doing with springs now and the stuff they're making them do. And you just go, that wasn't even conceivable a few years ago. So,
yeah.
And I know, Manly, you guys do a ton of springs too. You could probably tell us more about that than I know. But like, holy cow, man, what you can do now versus just a few years back is pretty awesome.
Yeah, it keeps on accelerating forward. Actually, I can't say enough good about the PSI guys too. They taught us a lot. And you remember Steve Bound?
I didn't know him.
I knew him well, and talk about a brilliant dude. He was so far ahead of me.
I'm humbled to just get to talk to people like that in the industry, just like the guys that are really doing stuff. And it's like, I never have, this probably sounds stupid, but I never have a really high opinion of myself. I never think that what I'm doing is that interesting or that special or that anybody would care. And then like, I'll turn around and, guys like Shane Tecklenburg say, hey, 10 years ago, this clown Ben told me something about fuel injection I thought was interesting. And I'm like, it's so amazing to think about that. Like, you never know who you're talking to that can make a huge difference in your career or you make in their career. And to get to talk to guys like that and Billy Godbold and, for all the other guys out there that are doing the EFI stuff, the resource that we have in the Paul Yaws and the Shane Tecklenburgs and the Tony Palos. I mean, man, don't miss out on those opportunities when you see them at the trade shows, because it always produces good stuff.
Yeah, no doubt. And that's kind of why we do this here, because we try to expose you guys that we are exposed to our listeners. And we know they appreciate it.
I tell you, just reading all the comments the last few weeks of the guests you've had is like, dude, this is a pretty cool resource that's available for people.
Yeah. And the one thing that's tough is it's hard. Like, we ask the questions, like I try to ask questions that like I already know, because you want, these are things like when you have a conversation with somebody, you kind of gloss over the stuff that's sort of understood. And that's where the other people, and that's where a place like a school comes in. Yeah. Because you really get some foundation that a lot of people don't have anymore. Like Ben said, I have foundation because I was involved with my whole life. Yep. But the guy who, is just out of high school or getting into tuning or whatever, he doesn't have that foundation that we would have had.
And that's a really big challenge for us to sit there and like try to, and I hate this term. I almost don't want to use it, but like try to think to dumb things down, but that's not what I mean. What I mean is that to think clearly enough as somebody that has information or knowledge at a level that you guys or we do or whatever, and say, okay, that's great, but I can't assume anything about this guy walking in the door. So where would I need to start to make sure that he gets everything he needs to have the path to here? Because, that's the problem with a lot of the people that have this information is either A, they don't want to share it, or B, they just simply don't know how. Mm-hmm. And being an effective communicator, a good instructor or a teacher encompasses so many levels of understanding as if the goal is to truly make somebody else better instead of enriching myself and putting myself on a platform and saying I'm so badass, but like it's a real challenge for us to not make that assumption that like, well, obviously you know what a piston is. We'll just skip over that and talk about camshafts. Right. Or obviously you know what a fuel injector is. Let's get on to, which button on the keyboard we press to make it faster.
That'd be No, you're right. That's
a real challenge.
Yeah, and it's a great point because you can't gloss over that. And sadly, people in class, I would imagine, would kind of be a little more cavalier. And like if you say, oh, you guys know what a piston is, and the guy in the back that doesn't want to raise his hand and say, well, I kind of don't.
Yeah, the peer pressure of not wanting to be the dumb guy in the room or the appearance of the dumb guy.
Right. So, yeah, Ben, you have to think about all that. It's a lot.
Yeah, and after so many years of doing it, you gain some experience on how to, I hesitate to use the term manipulate people, but how to sort of put them into a position that allows them to be able to ask questions and not feel like an idiot or not feel like the dumbest guy in the room or whatever. And some of that is technique, a teaching style that we use to kind of, we ask a lot more questions than we make statements, if that makes any sense to you. But,
it does. Yep.
You really got to give people the opportunity to, we want to teach them how to think and not tell them what to think. We don't want you to leave here and do it our way simply because we're obviously the best at it. We want you to leave here and go, I could figure this out on my own from here on out. Thanks for the hand up, guys. That's what I needed.
Yeah.
And it's a philosophy. It's just the way that we like to do things.
Yeah, I guess you would want one of your guys to take what you teach them and excel to the point that they make you proud figuring something out that maybe you guys didn't know.
Yeah. That happens all the time. Like, that's why I always say, like, oh, I'm the dumbest guy in the room or whatever. But the reality is if my students from 5 years ago or 10 years ago are not surpassing what I've accomplished, then I haven't done a good job, because I'm not out there putting Wallies on the shelf or, winning championships or whatever, because I'm in here doing this. I'm doing R&D and I'm helping people learn. So I expect you guys to go out there and do better than I ever did. I'm not the important one here. You are.
Yeah.
And so, I want to hear from the Shanes and the Tonys and the Pauls, but I'm also not trying to be them, and that's a lot of difference. I know there's a bunch of other training places out there and training people and that kind of stuff. And so many of them are caught up in building up their own self-image that's okay. I don't mind. It doesn't hurt my feelings, but it just doesn't benefit the student that much. And so I've dedicated my career to making sure I'm not doing that,
Well, speaking of Shane and Paul and all these guys, there were questions that actually appeared, and Tom's got a couple that were in the chat room, but I saw a couple of them filter by. Shane had referenced you, and I believe it was during a discussion about calculating a fuel map.
Mm-hmm.
Could you tell us exactly? I don't want to say how you do it, but how would one go about learning that? I mean, is that in your online stuff, or is that only in your?
Okay, so yeah, no. I mean, there's nothing magical about that. In fact, I feel like Shane did. It was amazing for him to even pretend like I helped him in his career, which was very cool. So Shane, thank you. However, I don't think he did a really good job of explaining what really happened there. Jim Munn from JGM Tooling, Motec USA had called me back in like 2005 or 6 or something and said, we are about to release our new software, version 3 Motec software, and it's a dramatic departure from anything that we've really ever done before. And so we'd like to get a leg up in helping our dealers and distributors make the transition easier. Could you come and let's work together and build a training program? And so I was thrilled at the opportunity. And basically they said, all right, Shane, it's your baby. You work with this guy and make sure he doesn't hurt himself. So Shane and I probably spent the better part of a year, I would say, doing that. Sometimes I would drive to Huntington Beach and we'd spend the day. Sometimes he'd drive out to Temecula and we'd hang out at my house and go over stuff. And I remember at one point in my office, I used to have an office out of my house, and he was like on one computer typing and I was with my back to him on another computer typing, and we would just like not talk for an hour and then turn around and say, here, read this and tell me what you think. And, and then we'd mark it up. But anyway, throughout that process, I realized that like, wow, this dude has done a lot. He's been there, done that. He's seen it all. And, through some, I don't even remember, level of conversation, it kind of came clear to me that every time he was tuning new stuff, it was always exactly what he described. I knew what to do, so I could always take this one and kind of modify it and do that, whatever. And just sort of on a whim, we got talking about an alternative method. And I just said, look, it's really just a math problem. If you think about it, you know the capability of fuel that could be delivered from the injector in an amount of time. And we know based on the engine's displacement and compression ratio and so on and so forth, how much air you have. And since everybody wants to talk about the ratio of air to fuel, there ought to be a math problem in there somewhere. And, this is how I do it. And so, some guys I'll sit down with for hours and hours, and they'll bang their head on the wall and they'll kind of sort of get it. And then a day or two later, they'll come back and we'll have the conversation again. And then they'll finally start to grab on. Not Shane. Shane, in like 10 minutes, is like the light bulb clicked and he's like, I got it. And then ran with it and did 10 times more with it than I probably ever did. But, I like I told him after that conversation, I was so honored that he brought my name up in that interview. But I just said, look, I appreciate you telling everybody that I helped, and maybe I was the match that started or the spark, but he was a can of gasoline. You know what I mean? Like, that dude's amazing. That being said, all I did was took the logic of how an engine works and paired it with the logic of how an ECU works and made it into a math problem that anybody could do without it being magic. Because at that time, 13, 14 years ago, 15 years ago, really, something like that, who knows, everybody that was a tuner that was getting paid was like super spy, cloak and dagger, secret squirrel kind of stuff. It was all this like protectionism of, I don't want anyone to know what I was doing because then I won't be able to make as much money, kind of, that attitude was very pervasive in the industry. And I was just like, that's kind of BS, man. Like, anybody with a calculator and about a half a day's worth of explanation could do this. And my sales pitch, I guess, is that everybody starts with a base map. And you have an XYZ car and you get a base map either from a buddy or the manufacturer or somewhere or somehow off the internet. But somewhere in the world, there was some guy that was smart enough to make that base map. And so I want to know how to do that. And I want you to know how to do that. And so to answer your question directly, you can learn some of that stuff. In fact, you can learn precisely that from the Advanced AFI Concepts online video. It's not in the intro kind of low-level one because, frankly, it's drinking out of a fire hose for most guys. You can get a pretty good idea of it or a taste for it in like our EFI 101 advanced hands-on courses. And then, of course, if you come here and do our boot camp, like ACP certification type programs, everything centers around that concept that you start with a model of a perfect engine and you write a base map that models that, and then we fix it by calibrating the engine and characterizing the engine to the ECU. But nothing, and I promise you, not one single thing that we do is magic or that we invented a secret formula or whatever, but it's organized and it's laid out in such a way that it's inarguable. It works every single time on every kind of engine. And I think that was the part that really attracted Shane to it when we first started, because he realized instantly, I can use this to my benefit. I can get the job done quicker, get down to business and do what we really want to do, which is make the car go fast, which we can't do until the engine runs good. So here's a simple, logical solution. We could do that. And by the way, here's some other ways I can trim it and make it even faster. And that's what really made it cool for him. And for me, it was really cool to have somebody like him acknowledge that and say, that was really neat. Thanks.
That's cool. Hey, we got a couple listener questions, if that's okay. One is pretty quick. I don't know if you could answer it or not. One of our guys wants to know if you have a preferred standalone ECU, what is it?
Oh boy.
and if you don't want to answer, because you feel free to not.
I want to know who's asking this before I can say that. But
he's one of our overseas guys. Isn't Matt? Is he from Australia?
What?
Matt Vaughn?
I wasn't really looking.
Oh, sorry. It's only part of your job.
Dime on him anyway. So
yeah. No.
Here's the deal. As a personal preference, there's a bunch that I really like. Obviously, I love the Motec stuff. I like the Haltech stuff. I use a lot of stuff that's out there. My personal race car is probably going to get, like a M-Tron ECU or something like that, because it's a pretty fully featured, higher end ECU. But the reality is, like, we use them all in the school. We use Holley, we use Fast XFI, we use Haltech, a ton of that. We use the Motec stuff, we've had Vipec, we've had AEM. And so my thing is that the ECU is almost never the limiting factor. It's the guy behind the laptop's ability to use that brand of software. Sometimes the ECU has limitations of capability, input, output, whatever, but generally that's not what's making the car fast or slow. So I'm actually really on the fence of what I'm going to run in my car. I'm kind of thinking maybe I'm going to do an M-Tron. I just had a conversation last week with Shane about doing a Motec on it. I've talked to the Haltech guys. I've talked to the Holley guys. I may actually end up with something that has a universal connector where I can swap ECUs and run a bunch of different stuff in my car. But I don't really think that that's the limiting factor. It really comes down to price point and feature set for most guys.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Another quick one. One of our guys wants to know if you have or are planning to do a small block Ford program.
A small block Ford?
Yeah, like an 8.2 deck, I guess. I don't know if that's it.
If you think about it, an LS1 is pretty darn close to a small block Ford. And,
yeah, agreed.
So I'd say in some ways we already do that. I don't think that we probably will, for nothing against the small block Ford. In fact, I think it's a killer engine. I think that the reality is the concepts that are driven through our CED or competition engine development program are applicable to any engine. Most of it I learned working on 500-inch DRCE stuff. So I don't think it matters what brand or what style or what kind. I think what matters to me as a business model is the level of inventory of parts that I have to keep on hand to make something happen. So if every single block in my building is an LS or an LS-based block, it's a cost thing for me to be able to keep things moving. And if I do a Ford over here and a Mopar over there and a Chevy here, I mean, I'm pretty close to going broke already, but that would definitely push me over the edge.
Yeah. The takeaway is the principles learned apply to
engines,
anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any engine.
It won't matter what kind it is.
Yep. Okay.
You want to ask that one? Because I ain't trying to say that guy's name. Claudio.
Claudio.
But the rest of it, I'd butcher it.
Yeah, he's done it he's asked a couple times. He wants to know, in your opinion, what is the most important quality someone in this business, tuning and engine building, needs? Quality to be a tuner engine builder. I think you have to be tall.
Handsome.
Yeah.
On my list.
Takes me out of it.
Well-mannered and good sense of humor, likes long walks on the beach, that kind of stuff. But I think honestly, the ability to be more scientific than religious. And what I mean by that is the ability to think clearly and think for yourself and not just do what everybody else says that you have to do or you should do or what will work or what won't work. But I think the ability to be a problem solver relies on your ability to think clearly and think for yourself and just like test things instead of believe what everybody says. And that's not to say there aren't smart people that are giving you good advice. That's not what I mean. I just mean that by and large, you'll find a lot of unverified information out there that can be positioned in a way that it sounds very authoritative, even though it has no basis in reality.
Yep. No doubt. We've seen that on the internet about a myriad of subjects.
I mean, hell, I've been doing this 14 years. So.
Yeah, not only car stuff.
The one thing that I can say is a quality about being an engine builder, and I mean, this is from the engine builder side. I can tell you that this is going to sound, and maybe it's because I'm getting older and I'm more cynical and I was around it. I would tell you, you got to have a little bit of thick skin because customers are going to do awful things to you. They'll be your friends. They'll be your buddies. They won't pay you. You kind of can't take it to heart. It's a tough business. It really is. And with the tuning stuff, like I could imagine that the same kind of thing happens. Like you worked your ass off to tune a guy's car, and then you found out that 2 weeks later he was with the tuner down the road because the tuner down the road can do a better job. You can't let that bother you. You got to do your own thing. You got to believe in what you do, and that's all you can do. You got to leave the rest behind.
To further that, there's always the toss-up between whose fault was it. Was it the engine builder or was it the tuner? And frankly, most of the time, neither one knows for sure, but they're definitely going to blame the other guy. So whichever end you're on, you're going to get some fingers pointed at you, and you have to be able to either A, defend yourself eloquently, or B, have thick skin.
Yeah, because we all know that it's never the owner's or driver's fault.
No, of course not. No,
Okay.
we were just having a conversation this morning with a buddy of mine that's an engine builder, and I was telling him about this time when I was doing Porsche stuff back in the olden days. We had this twin turbo deal, and we were at Willow Springs getting ready for their 4-hour tribute to Le Mans, like nighttime endurance race, and we had this brand spanking new deal. And we go out, and it's like 2 weeks before the race, and there's a practice day at the track, and we go out, and he makes about 3 laps. And at Willow, there's like a big sweeper in the back where you're going pretty fast. Those cars are like 157 or 58 miles an hour. And, when you go, I think it's 8 to 9, you want to downshift from 5th to 4th. And so I see him coming around, and then all of a sudden the car slows way down, and he comes in the pits. And this thing literally sounds like somebody tied a ball peen hammer onto the end of the crane after it's busted. And I'm like, dude, what happened? When did that start? And he goes, right when I went 5th to 2nd. And I was like, just push on the trailer. We're done. So we go in the data logger, and this thing had the rev when we were at 7,800, and it went to over 13,000 RPM before it chainsawed everything in half.
That'll do it.
So it's like sometimes it's not the tuner or the engine builder. There's nothing you can do about it. So that happens.
Wow.
In fact, if I'm not mistaken, didn't that just happen like last weekend in NASCAR? I think Dale Jr. did something very similar to that.
Oh, I don't know. Did they race last week?
Don't ask me.
It's in your guys' neighborhood. I figure but over there in Pocono, I think he was doing an interview and said that's basically what I did. I screwed up and went to the wrong gear, and we toasted the thing. That's a bummer.
Wow. That's an ongoing joke here about NASCAR. Like I asked Mike if he watched a race, and he says, "Did they race this week?"
I don't know. Yeah. I just don't watch. I mean, I'm no offense to any NASCAR guys. I just don't watch it anymore.
I love the technology and the science of NASCAR. I just struggle to watch the WWF aspect of the personalities and the races and all that kind of stuff. I actually went to a race in Fontana, California one time and sat in the stands, and I literally fell asleep. It was so boring. But I love the technology.
Yeah, agree.
Well, what I really enjoy with NASCAR, at least when it was legit qualifying. Like when you've got qualifying motors, the guys are for everything they could, little pencil-sized wrist pins, whatever they could come up with. I loved all that technology, and then watching those guys try to do that. And then, I understand the expense. It was driving things way out of control, but boy, that is what I miss. I think that took a lot away from me, actually.
Yeah, it's not as fun now for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. We got a caller. I mean, you want to try?
See what the guy wants?
Try this? Yeah.
Hang on a minute. You can get him in. Caller, you're on the air or podcast.
Something.
this where I talk to Ben Strader?
Could be.
Yeah, I think I know. I think I know that voice.
You think you know his voice? Well, only two places that sound like us: Oklahoma and Texas.
There you go. I thought it was a dude from the 405. That sounds like Doc from Street Outlaws.
That could be.
That you got it right, buddy.
What's happening, buddy? How you doing, man?
We're doing all right. We got some Arizona weather here. We're just baking in the sun and the 100-degree heat already in June. It's killing us.
Yeah, it was borderline chilly here today. It was about 121. I thought about wearing sweatpants to work, but I didn't want it to look like I had bad credit. So,
but it's a dry heat, no?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a dry heat. Yeah, exactly.
So
what's happening? How's the car running? So those of you that don't know, Doc is EFI. He runs the ATEC EFI system, and we helped him install and tune it. What, about a year and a half ago now?
March of last year was when I was down there.
Okay.
So yeah, about a year and a half.
And then I saw you January or February down at Tony Palo's place at T1 in Texas. So how's it been running since then?
Yeah, we've the EFI unit and the tune is working flawless. I've had a few other issues, mechanical stuff, some rod failures. We had some issues that we thought was the tune, but I'm gonna chalk it up to low tension oil rings. For those of you that don't know, you can't introduce extra oil into a nitrous combustion chamber. It's highly offensive.
Yeah, not advisable.
Is that bad for him?
No.
Is that bad for him, Tom?
Yeah, that nobody likes that.
No, but nobody likes that. Yeah. So, anyways, but other than that, everything's been going good. I didn't have the greatest season 9, but it wasn't for anybody's fault but my own or mechanical fault being the rods. So.
When you say season 9, you're talking about you're like on some TV show or something, right? I never watch it, so I don't know.
Yeah, I mean it's nothing big or major. Just only Discovery Channel's #1 show on Monday night prime time.
But who's counting?
You know what sucks? I was at the show one time. I went to a taping. I was at a taping where the Sport Compact guys came, the Supra and all those deals, and you weren't there.
The only one that I missed.
Yeah, it figures.
Oh.
Yeah. That we had a little bit of a disagreement early on in the filming where they for some reason didn't like me and I wasn't getting invited to a bunch of stuff. So I just said, hey, if I'm not guaranteed to race on this, I'm going to go out and race somewhere else, and that's exactly what I did.
Well, next time I'm out.
How does that deal work for you guys? Do they pay you to go to all those places, or you just basically they say this is where we're going to film and you show up?
We're kind of under contract now, and finally after season 9 seasons, most of us are making some okay money, not movie star money by no means, but so they do pay us to film, but once they started paying us a little bit more money than just peanuts, that's when they wanted us to race more. So it kind of went hand in hand.
Well, Doc, if I can ask you a car-related question, this is Mike. Why did you choose the Haltech? What made your decision go that direction?
Just to be blatantly honest, Haltech really chose me, and I can't tell you why because I don't know why. I can just say that I'm highly honored and have zero regrets that they chose me, and I agreed to make the switch.
Excellent.
Yeah, that's great. So are you guys taping season 10 now?
Season 10 starts taping tomorrow.
Ah.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
And you got a good bullet in the thing? Are you all buttoned up?
Yeah, we got the good bullet in. I've kind of put away a little bit of money, and I'm actually starting to buy. I got a new set of heads ordered from CFE. I'm fixing to order a block from Brodix, and we're going to build a brand new bullet just like the one I have now. But other than being old and wore out and tired and ready to retire, it's going to be brand new and ready to run and take on the world.
That's awesome. So tomorrow.
Well, as always, if you need something, just give me a holler, and I'm glad to hook up and help you. You've been doing pretty good without me, but Nice to know you're listening out there.
Yeah, well, Ben, I couldn't be where I'm at without you. I mean, for the first, after I left you in March, the first, pretty much all of last year, you were my number one guy on speed dial. So,
well, I appreciate that. That's cool.
That's
nice
pretty good. Pretty good endorsement.
Yeah, it's a hell of an endorsement. There you go, everybody.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
I'm no Shane, but I can still tune a keyboard now and then.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, we're just now getting to me coin a phrase that I heard sitting in Skillman's driver lounge at an NHRA event from some major EFI tuner guy. I said, "What are you doing?" He says, "I'm picking fly shit out of pepper."
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
I did say that.
I haven't got the D tuned to where I'm just picking fly shit out. We're picking bigger pieces, but it's really safe. It's close, and I know what I'm doing now, at least enough to not burn anything up. And we're getting closer and closer to that fly shit goal.
That's great.
Well, and frankly, like for the guys listening, that's what makes your kind of cars cool. I mean, typically, especially because of the surfaces you race on, you guys have such a huge excess of power. We're trying to figure out how much of it we can have. Whereas when I was doing that pro stock stuff, and Doc got to come and hang out with us and sit in the trailer while I was doing my job, most of the time, we're trying to figure out how to get more. The track is flypaper, the tires are huge, the car is light. We got every advantage except we don't have any power. So, when we talk about, like you said, picking the fly shit out of the pepper, we want every last one that we could find, and that was a really tough job. But on your stuff, it's the opposite. You have so big of an engine and so much power, and like if we want more, we can change jets in the nitrous. And so yours is usually somewhat more challenging in trying to guess what we can get away with.
Absolutely. That's why we haven't ever got to the fly shit part, because there's so much bigger obstacles.
A lot of pepper.
Yeah. The pepper doesn't matter yet.
Yeah, it is.
Right on, man.
Hey, Doc, if you want, take a minute, and I'm sure you got a bunch of fans listening right now, and they're going to hear this. If you want to, plug some places you're going to be, other than taping the show, feel free, man.
Well, 3 weeks ago, I would love to. We just got back from a 3-week road trip where we hit 6 tracks in 3 weekends, and we seen over 10,000 fans, and we had a window of 3 weeks where we could do that. Now we're filming again, so I don't have anything planned for the rest of the year. Hopefully in October, when we quit filming, I can hit some of the warmer spots, Georgia, Florida, maybe even Arizona, Vegas. Maybe we can hit some of the southern warmer states before the end of the year while it's still warm and the tracks close down.
Well, you can call in anytime and, tell us where you're going to be. It's an open invitation.
Absolutely.
Yeah, very cool, man.
For those of you guys that are listening and don't know much about EFI or converting over from carburetors to fuel injection, it is really not as hard as it seems. Once you get over the intimidation factor, or get somebody who I would recommend Ben Strader to anybody, somebody like Ben or one of his instructors, to kind of dumb it down for you to say, just let you know that it's really not that hard. That was my biggest deal, and once Ben dumbed it down, it was just amazing, and I have no regrets. I wish I'd have done this 5 years ago.
Well, that's high praise, high compliment.
Yep, awesome.
Very cool.
All right, man. Well, good luck in the taping this season, and like I said, you ever want to call in, you want to plug stuff, just let us know.
Yeah, anytime.
Got it, guys. Take care, guys.
All right. Hey, thanks, Doc, man. Talk to you soon, buddy.
Thanks, Doc.
Take care.
That was a surprise, huh?
That was a good compliment.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a hell of a compliment, because he was kind of old school carburetor guy.
Yeah.
When the show started. So that's a start to finish project of EFI University right there.
It was, yeah. So he, like he said, the Haltech guys approached him and said, do you want to do this? And then I think Dave Visner actually did an intake manifold for him that was pretty crazy, all billet, and throttle bodies. And I remember, they tapped us and said, hey, if we do this, one of the problems is Haltech is an Australian company, and we don't have that many resources in America. If we do this with him, would you guys be willing to let us hire you and do the install and whatever? And so that was a fantastic partnership for us to build with the manufacturer, But let alone that, like with a guy like Doc, who's pretty vocal and outspoken, and like, you know, obviously a lot more people know him than me. So, you know, it's pretty. I was only half-heartedly kidding, but I really don't watch TV, so I don't watch their show. But it seems like every couple of weeks somebody will send me a text of their television with like him wearing our hat or our shirt or whatever. And
Yeah,
it's cool.
that's pretty genuine. That's not like we don't pay him to do that. Like he does it because he had a great experience. So that's pretty freaking awesome if you ask me.
it is. And I could tell you that they do get paid to wear shit. I mean, everybody knows that, but I know it just from interaction. So for him to wear your stuff is very genuine appreciation. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, let's go on record here saying we didn't ask anybody from Street Outlaws to call up and plug Ben. You know, I mean, that was
exactly.
that was him on his own. So that's like I said, that's a great endorsement.
I didn't even know the guy's name.
Me
We're
neither.
looking at the screen. We're like, hey, some guy.
Yeah, some guy. I don't know.
We're two idiots. We're lucky we well, 3 idiots, 3.5 idiots.
Gee, thanks.
We're lucky we picked him up. Usually
usually be like, fuck that guy.
Yeah. I guess we can't do that anymore.
No.
Yeah, right.
We've actually really kind of become good buddies, and he'll call me all the time. And you know, like I said, I traveled down to Tony's place in, I don't know, January or February. And you know what was cool about that is like we tuned that car when it was here, and I hope he doesn't mind me saying, but like it's got 4 stages, and we only really typically run 2 on the dyno because it's hard on the transmission and, you know, all the other stuff. But, you know, it made like 1,770 on 2 stages. So like a year later, I go back to a completely different part of the country down to Tony's place there in Texas. And I think when we were done that night on 2 stages, it made like 1,775, which essentially means that Tony is a better tuner than me because we made 5 more horsepower than we did mine. But my point is, when you're at that level, to even get in the same zip code is pretty darn cool. So him and I have become pretty good friends, and he'll call me all the time and say, I'm at some race in this part of the country, and this is what I'm thinking, and, you know, what do you think? And so, you know, it's one of those deals where, like, we didn't pay him, he doesn't pay us, but he knows my kids' names, and he talks to our family, and we're actually pals, and I think that's a really neat deal.
That's really cool.
Good to come out of that.
Hell yeah. All right.
Very cool.
So, yeah,
What else you got?
That was neat.
I'm good. I've had all I can stand right now. I mean, unless
Tom's all excited. He got to talk to the Street Outlaw guys. His legs shaking under Jackson's looking at him like, what's wrong with you?
Mike is completely embellishing. I'm the one that was at the show.
But
no,
you
it was
get to meet him.
that was cool.
No more technical stuff or anything that's really you want to know, I guess.
I don't think I got any more questions. Probably the best thing at this point is to tell everybody again how to get you. Tell them what you offer for courses, where they can take them, where they can sign up. I think that's a wrap.
I'll do all that. That flew by. I never ever get nervous at anything, but like after you having Tony and Paul and Shane all in a row, and then you want me to come on, I'm like, what the hell am I going to say? But that flowed pretty well.
Well, I could tell you when it flows that well, it's good. So
I hope people think that. But
holy shit! I was just in my mind thinking, how long was this? And I thought, maybe an hour and 15.
No, we're
Ooh,
2 hours.
Yeah,
that's pretty damn.
Oh wow, that's like we won. We got the record. Anyway, EFI University is the name of our school. It's open to everybody at every skill level. You need, no real special experience or knowledge or whatever. You can come and spend time with us for 1 day or 1 week or 1 month, however you want to do it. We call our training a la carte. It's not an 18-month or 2-year program. It's small, bite-sized courses that are individually tailored to your needs. You want to learn about engines. You want to learn about EFI. You want to learn about how to make a motorsports quality wiring harness. You want to learn about direct injection specifically, how to reflash OEM cars. We have little tiny bite-sized courses. And EFI101.com is the website. Ben at EFI101.com is my email. 866-316-7744 will get you on the phone with us. We're pretty easy to get a hold of, and we are pretty friendly, and we'll talk about anything. The only thing we don't have is secrets. Like, we're not here to have secrets. We're here to share information. So you will have a good time. You will learn something, and we'll probably end up being friends by the time you leave.
Awesome.
Very
Sounds
cool.
good.
Well, we appreciate you, Ben.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ben.
Yeah,
this has been great.
I got to come on your show, especially come on twice, is really a great honor. So anything I can do to help you guys, my number, just call and I'll bend over backwards for you.
Put a good word in to us to Billy Godbold.
Yeah,
because I know
Easy deal.
I can talk. I talked to Gordon there about this briefly.
yeah.
But for me, I think when Billy and I were talking about the flat tappet stuff, Christ, that was probably It's probably going back 16 years.
Yeah.
17 years.
Yep.
You know,
wow.
so, I mean, he's going to be like, flat tap it for who? You know, he's not going to remember.
Yeah, if you could put a word
Yeah, I
into
talked
him,
to him.
that'd be great.
I do. I talked to him probably 3 times over the weekend. I talked to him today. I'm sure I'll talk to him tomorrow, and that's the first thing I'll bring up is I personally would love to hear him on your show because I could learn more. So
Cool.
I'll see if we can't push that along.
Fantastic.
All right. We appreciate it, man.
Thanks, Ben.
Hey, guys, have a great night, and thanks a bunch for having me.
You're
All
welcome.
right.
yeah,
Thank
thanks.
you, sir.
Okay.
Bye.
Well, are we climbing on our way up or what?
That was pretty good, man.
I got to say, like, I'm not a starstruck guy, but the only thing that happened is when he said it's Doc from Street Outlaws. I was like, oh man, I talked a lot of shit about those guys at the very
I
beginning.
know. No, I'm not starstruck either, but I just think it's cool that
they're
you know,
listening, or
that 3 idiots, started podcasts a couple of years ago, and now we're
In a spare bedroom.
wait. One idiot's not here anymore. So
Oh yeah, we lost an idiot and gained a simpleton.
an idiot, an idiot and a half.
Yeah, in a spare bedroom.
I try to include the guy.
I know.
And
Yeah, you didn't say a whole lot, Ted. That's all. That's all right. Like I said, I'm going to can your opening intro, and you can just sit there.
or not show up.
Whatever.
We'll just
Wait,
we'll plug you in.
don't like my velvet voice in the beginning. So
No, we do.
That was a little creepy. We're going to have a discussion about that as soon as we get done here. We're going to have to figure out where exactly that came from.
Yeah, we're going to.
All right. Well, we'll be back next week. Do we have anything scheduled?
Hopefully, we're gonna have Billy Godbold, but
Well, I don't know if he's going to be able to do that quick.
I don't know.
see.
But we'll get somebody.
we got some pull now. So
We'll get somebody good.
11th and moving on up.
Damn.
See you next week.
See you guys.
later.